I'm glad some of you are still with us. We have so many of our speakers that decided to stay, and I'm just going to start with some of the questions were specific, so I'll ask them directly, and some were more general. And the first one that came was for Dianne Saxe, and it was asking, how do we stop urban sprawl? So if you want to answer that.
Being driven by the provincial government, which has changed a whole series of rules to make sprawl easier and faster. We can work at our municipal levels. Municipal governments are increasingly aware that urban sprawl is bad for their budgets and their cost of operating, as well as bad for their vulnerability to floods and so on. And write to your MPP, go speak to your MPP when you can. No substitute to going to actually go talk to people when you can do so in person. It's also a great chance to use your creativity. If you're good at social media, this is something you can do on social media. If you're good at writing songs, write a song about it. Use whatever you're good at to get the message across. We need clean, compact, connected communities where people can meet their needs, but walking and biking have almost everything they need within 20 minutes. We know that's what good urban design looks like. We know that it will reduce the cost of living. We know that it will clean the air. Make the vision clear, talk about it all the time, look for every opportunity. And one other thing, if you have time, and once it's possible to do so, go show up at your municipal council and planning decisions are being considered. Usually the public never shows up. The only people who show up are the developers and their lobbyists, and you can guess which way the decision happens. So if you can get organized with some friends and take turns and go and show up and ask questions and object, you can make a difference. Thank you, everybody. I'm really sorry to have to run. I've got to go to my next interview. Good night.
Thank you, Dianne. Thanks for giving us the time. We've had a recurring question in the chat that was about both how do we make the major change that we're asking for, like how do we actually get industrials to change? So that's kind of a question for all of you. And then there were more concrete ones that kept coming back about how do we fight this desire to go back to normal in maybe a more concrete way. You know, we established here we can't go back to normal. Concretely, how do we do that? That's not an easy question, but whoever wants to go first, please go ahead.
Just open it up. I think signing them is a better way.
Jennifer, are you?
I could try on the back to normal. I think we have to demand in every context that we're in, and whether those are, you know, family to organizational to our nation, to actively reflect on this particular moment. What have we learned? What have we learned about respect of science? What have we learned about interdependence? What have we learned about where real value is, not in things the market understands to be valuable, but in a different place? What have we learned about connectivity? What have we learned about the rhythms of our lives, about consumerism, etc.? And I think we have to demand that kind of active reflection and pull forward all of the learnings that we have. And I think that's going to take all of us to really keep our eye on what we've learned, so that we are not beginning again a cycle that we know isn't sustainable for Earth or the planet. So that, I think that's the task of all of us, is really to pull those learnings forward. But in order to pull them forward, we need to be actively reflecting in the contexts from little to big.
Thank you. Does anybody else have comments? Deborah?
Yeah, sure. I think I'm unmuted now. Yes. I think I agree with everything that that Jennifer said. I think the other part of it is just thinking about also our past, that we were also, because I come from this sort of like indigenous knowledge perspective, is that really it wasn't that long ago when we had to do like without. That's what people think right now, that they're doing without, but actually really probably for most of human existence we were perfectly fine without having to go to McDonald's all the time, whatever it is that people are doing that they can't do right now. So I think there's a part that just goes, we need to look forward, but at the same time there's also a lot to learn in the moment, but there's also a lot to learn from our ancestors and our grandparents and great grandparents as well. Like, to me, those are still extremely relevant relevant teachings and lessons to learn about their lives as well. I think the other part of it is to just also try to transcend, like it's really hard to, like you're in the moment and you're experiencing, which is really good, but be able to transcend that and try to think about, I don't want to go back to normal, but then try to envision what the new world is going to be like. That's, I think, is really hard for people. It's easier to go back to normal because that's where the momentum is, and that's where the momentum is going to be afterwards. So trying to think through, I don't want that because it's not working. It caused this problem in the first place. Where is it that I want to go? And what are the kind of things, transformation and ways of thinking and living do I need to do to try to get there? And it's hard to do that when you're, again, in the moment and often trying to get through the day. But I think we have to have this capacity to have an imagination, which fortunately we have as well. So hopefully that's helpful. Like, but really just to kind of think, what did we learn from the past? What are we learning in the moment? And where does that give us hope for the future? So hopefully that's helpful. Thank you.
Deborah, thank you. I think that was really helpful because for the youth, that definitely resonates. We still imagine, we still, draw and sing and think about our future a lot. Like, what do I want to be when I grow up? So that's really helpful. Toni, did you want to add anything on that? Otherwise, we have a question for you very specifically as well.
I think I was just going to say, like, I think it is very important, as Deborah mentioned very well, just to think about our past, our present, and our future. I think what I would like to say is just, it is a challenging time. It is okay to not be okay. There are a lot of mental health challenges that I know people are going through, and that you're not alone. That is a normal response. I think we're all going through a bit of a grieving process, and that's okay. And I think there is some power to being able to grieve collectively, and we don't do that super well, and I wish there were more spaces for that. But just something to keep in mind. Normal is comfortable and change is uncomfortable, and the loss of a world that we knew is painful, and that's okay.
Thanks so much, Toni. There was maybe a quick question, a quick answer on this one. Someone was asking where they could find more information about the effect of plastic. So that one is for you, Toni, on the water systems around Toronto or just in Canada in general. If you have tips for them on where to find that. Or if we can reach out to you at a further time with that. You're unmuted.
Awesome question, and there probably are some documents that I have access to. I just don't have them off the top of my head. So if I can find those and get them to you, I will have a much more concrete answer.
Absolutely. And folks, some of you have asked questions for some of our speakers that weren't there. So for all these speakers, we will reach out to them and try to tweet those out. So Climate Fast on Twitter, we'll try to get that. I have a closing question maybe for all of you. I might put you on the spot, so I'm sorry. Do you have either a song, a book, a poem, a piece of art, something that gives you hope? We kind of have to keep hope. Is there one thing out of many that still fuels you? Whoever wants to start with that. Deborah, do you want to go? I think you're muted. Give me a second. There you go.
Okay, it's usually one of my favorite images when I present. It's a picture by Norval Morseau, which I don't have handy right at the moment, but he's an Anishinaabe artist, and in his art, everything's always connected, like humans, the world, the sun, the moon, and everything's about all these connections. And it always reminds me of this teaching by this artist and activist, Isaac Day. And he's a really good storyteller, and I couldn't do any of what he says justice. And he always says, we're all in this together. We're all really what's unfolding is the story about the earth. And we're all in this together. We're all part of this huge sacred story that he talks about. And we have choices about who we want to be in that story. Are we going to be the villain? Are we going to be the hero? Are we going to help the hero? Are we going to help, or are we not going to help? So we have to think of ourselves as we're all in this story, and we're all these characters in the story. And it's a sacred story that's unfolding about us and the earth, and to think about it that way. And I think he tells it that way so that we all know that we're connected, and that everything that we do actually really matters, whether that's little or whether that's big. So I wish I could show you the art, but so that's what always inspires me. And I usually like to end that way so that people see that they actually matter in all of this, and every decision that they make actually matters. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, Deborah. That was such a good answer. Did you prepare that or something? Jennifer, Toni, do you want to add? Have your own? I'll unmute the both of you and you can just decide. Give me a second. Okay, Toni, you're unmuted.
Okay, fantastic. I don't have a super awesome answer. Something that I come back to a lot is the Bhagavad Gita, which is a really epic poem sort of describing one man's, it's sort of like a battle between his higher self and his lower self, let's say. And it's just a really powerful call to align yourself with your purpose and to do the things that allow you to be your best self. And I always find that quite inspiring. And I've learned a lot from that. So that is where I go regularly if I need sort of some hope and some grounding.
Toni, that is an awesome answer. Jennifer, do you have anything to add?
Well, I'll offer you a poem from Wendell Berry, who is a farmer and a theologian. And it's a short poem. I'll just offer that to you. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. So that's Wendell Berry's The Peace of Wild Things. And in this time, that inspiration is giving me peace in a really anxious time.
Yeah, that helped so much. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you to all of you that stayed